Listen, man, I know exactly what you do. Yeah. This stripe means I've known you guys for a while.
You know, the idea of Copwatch is to make sure that we follow the rules.
It's fine to do Copwatch activities, and no one's tripping on that. No one's going to go, ooh, the big bad Copwatch. We're not worried about that.
I absolutely understand. I'm always very supportive of what you guys do.
You go out there, you make sure that the police don't violate anyone's civil rights, and that's mainly your job.
All of the districts can disregard any units not 35. Other than District 1 cars can disregard only 25. We have a lot of people out here. Have a couple of cars continue. Road closed. Okay, I've got all the District 1 cars continuing.
On the ground!
That's what I got you on camera! All these goddamn kids, I want to do it like that! You got no camera! And we seen it! And I'm taking the top boys up and down! That's bullshit! Y'all coming flying through here, all these kids up here! Y'all ain't got no respect for the kids! All these goddamn kids! All these kids!
Well, do you know what your rights are when you're stopped or questioned by a police officer?
We're facing, I think, the most sophisticated propaganda machine that's ever been created in the United States media, right? It's like amazing production standards. They dominate the airwaves. They have all this high tech, so that 24 hours a day, most Americans are getting a message that's opposite of the one we want to send.
The police know that they're not supposed to violate the rights of citizens, but the overwhelming majority of these violations happen in a setting where nobody seems to be paying any attention. Showing concern for what the police do in our communities is a small but real deterrent against police misconduct.
You have the right to observe what the police are doing in your community. And that's one way you as a citizen, you as a person, can help make the situation better.
Cops are public servants. They're here to serve you. And if they're disserving you, then you need to change it. And this is one of the ways that you can change it.
We have cultivated a consciousness in our community where everybody's Copwatch. So they don't really know who the organizers are and who the just regular citizens are.
A wise man once told me it ain't what you do, it's how you do it. We let the police know that Copwatch is here, but they never know what Copwatch is. So they'll never know when Copwatch is watching. So really, we keep ourselves on a hush-hush so that they can do their thing, and as soon as they do it, we there to catch them, because we everywhere.
Police review is really important. I mean, it's critical that that arm of the state that has the guns and the clubs be restrained, and it's a very remarkable thing. And sort of the signature characteristic of a real democracy is that there is restraint in the police.
I think it's important that people realize that there are different levels of direct action, you know? You can have a demonstration, workers go on strike, but on a very micro level, the direct action of just walking up to what they call a crime scene and observing the police mishandling a youth actually is a deterrent for this type of activity.
Well, you know, Copwatch is kind of based on the fact that we have a right to observe the police. The police are are community servants. They're employees of our local government, and they're operating in an official capacity in public places. And that means as citizens, we have a constitutional right to watch what they're doing, and we take advantage of that by recording what they're doing with video cameras and with the written word.
Copwatch is the streets. You know what I'm saying? It's the community, man. You know, it's just people that's just tired of things that's going on everywhere, you know what I'm saying, where they may live at and want to make a change.
By not fearing the system, you are able to change it.
Get on the sidewalk now! Go! Get on the sidewalk! Y'all crazy! Y'all know that's wrong! Y'all damn wrong!
Cop watching is exactly how it sounds. You know, it's you watching the cops. And not just the normal you watching the cops like you're sitting on your front stoop or out your bedroom window. You're exercising your right as a citizen to see any type of arrest or any type of action that the police are having, you know, and at the same time, you're watching it for your own self, but you're videotaping it, you're monitoring it, you know, as it goes on. So if anything happens where somebody needs to be held accountable or a question comes up, you're there. So it's that type of watching.
I'm very committed to civilian review, and I'm very committed to cop watching and the spreading of the gospel of watching the police, not walking away, not shielding your eyes, not turning away from it.
So cop watching is a consciousness that we have cultivated in our community over the years. We've conducted hundreds of Know Your Rights trainings for school children, for community groups. We hold forums, we have protests, we publish a newsletter, we maintain a webpage, and slowly by slowly we're able to educate the public about police issues in their community, about what's really happening.
However, if nothing else, Copwatch can and will and does inform citizens of their rights as citizens, inform citizens of what is proper police conduct and what is improper police conduct, inform citizens of what you can do to protect yourself, you know, in case you get in any type of predicament with the police.
Now, cop watching, that function that we carry out in observing the police, does not have to be limited to members of Copwatch per se. Anyone can watch the police.
We started Copwatch in March of 1990 because there was a group of us who wanted to work with homeless people, and what we noticed was that even more than food, even more than clothes, what they needed was some protection from the police. Police were attempting to rid the downtown area of homeless people, and they were using a variety of means to do that.
I know I hate this game. And if you're doing something right, you don't need to block the camera, right? You know? You know?
What's also happening is that we needed to educate the community, because there was one section of the community that was saying the police were being brutal, they were violating people's rights, that they were harassing people. And there was a whole other segment of the community that had no idea that this was going on.
Get up. Get up. I'll pull you up. Get up now.
Copwatch was meaning to be like a neighborhood watch, except the point wasn't to organize against our neighbors, it was to organize our neighbors to protect themselves from abusive cops.
Was that necessary?
Yep. Are you necessary?
Yes.
We set out to document this activity in order to protect the rights of homeless people, as well as to educate the public about what was actually happening. Early on, we committed ourselves to the concept of nonviolence because we needed to gain the confidence of the community and let them know that we're not out there to stir up trouble, that we're out there to document and advocate for people's rights.
Do you mind this?
No, I don't mind.
Okay, hang in there.
So for the sake of the community, as well as the safety of our cop watchers, as well as the conduct of the police, we felt that it was very important to assert that we have no intention of interfering and that we'll do as much as we can to ensure the safety of the officers, ourselves, and the person who's been stopped, all the while asserting our rights.
So what are you being charged with, Dan? Did they tell you?
I don't know. I don't know what I'm being charged with yet.
You have a right to know.
Yeah.
Through all these different means that we have of communicating our message, I think the police accountability movement has grown far beyond anyone's expectations.
9 News has learned the Cincinnati Police Division, under fire for the way officers use force, will now have the moves they make examined in a brand new way. 9 News reporter Sean Lay has discovered citizen patrols plan to follow officers. And Sean, those patrols will be armed with video cameras?
They need to go. They treating black people wrong. They some bootleg cops, man. They should get some cops that's on a bar right now.
April 7th, man. Timothy Thomas was being apprehended by some police officers who was just out doing their regular harassing folks. And he was just one that cared about his life and ran. The assassin, Roach, and his lying friends came through this way right here and shot him for no reason. You know what I'm saying? And that was what added up to the Cincinnati unrest.
After Stephen Roach shot Timothy Thomas, it was the 15th black man that had been shot. No white people shot during that whole time since 1995, and since then, a number more have been killed as well.
So when April 10th came, it was like, boom, a bubble busted. And it was like, who would have thought that Cincinnati, out of all the cities in the United States, would have been the first city in the millennium to jump off a riot?
There was always this critique that people say that people were tearing up their own neighborhood. Well, home ownership in this neighborhood is 3%. People weren't tearing up their own neighborhood. That's bullshit. People were upset and they were looking for a way to vent their anger.
Ever since the riots, you got children when they're in the car with adults and they get pulled over by the police, they get out with their hands up in the air like that, you know, just so that they won't get shot. But and it offends the police. You know what I'm saying? It offends them, but they can't be mad because that's what they do.
People in Cincinnati are pissed off. I think April proved that to pretty much everybody around the world.
I mean, me being a young black male in this environment, I recognize and came to a solid fact that in order to bring change, it starts with one person. So if I feel it within myself to change, then I have to step up and do that on my own. But with the aid of others, with the same alike mind state, the same goal, the same focus, trying to get to that same place, we can do it.
Is 9 News at 5.
Some human rights groups in Denver say they want to start monitoring the police department here. The idea comes from a non-profit volunteer organization in California called Copwatching.
Our first big success, you know, was the Cinco de Mayo cruising. We had a friend of ours who went out to Federal Boulevard over the Cinco de Mayo weekend, in which tens of thousands of young Chicanos cruise, which is a traditional Western activity here in the United States. You drive up the street, you drive down the street, and you meet members of the opposite sex and get their phone numbers. And you also decorate your car in honor of the holiday Cinco de Mayo. Well, the police response to that had been really outlandish. They had roadblocks that were keyed on what race you were, and we were able to document that on video. Every instance of a car being pulled would lead to either arrest or the car being impounded. What we did is we took that to the Chicano organizations on the west side and showed them that film and got them together and created our first attempt to monitor the police here in Denver. And what we did is we called it United Families for a Safe Cinco de Mayo. We actually got middle-aged people out from the Chicano movement in the 70s, and put them on every street corner along Federal Boulevard and had them watch the police as they interacted with the kids.
I was wondering if the Copwatch team got down there with you. The Copwatch is here with us. All right, you got a party, have fun. Thank you very much, we're gigging it up.
And we were able to make a gigantic change. We were able to get the police to change their policies on how they treated cruisers. And I think the year before we started, there'd been over 3,000 tickets issued and over 200 arrests. The second year we were out there monitoring, we got it down to 15 citations and no arrests.
Sean, I'm kind of curious, can these people get in any trouble by following police with cameras?
Very good, legitimate question. Actually, they're okay legally as long as they are on public property, not going onto any private property, and as long as they don't interfere with any of the police activity they intend to tape.
The laughable part about this is that you think that we don't want you to come out.
Step away, okay?
You don't have any choices.
You need to back up. I'm Lieutenant Stone, the watch commander.
If I'm doing what I'm doing, I don't care that you're there. You're perfectly able and capable of watching from afar. I'm asking you to step back!
It's an officer safety issue.
Safety zone, a safe distance.
Safety situation. Okay, and you're not trying to restrict my ability to observe at all.
Just need you to do it from where we're safe.
You go ahead, you're safe. You're all right. Okay, excuse me.
Mr. Patton.
Here or whatnot, don't photograph in that way.
Why?
Why? Because it's a crime scene and you're not entitled to. How's that?
I can't film it? Are you saying that I cannot film it? Or what are you saying? Just explain yourself.
I'm just saying, stay out of the area right now. You can go back on that side of the street. Wherever you want to shoot from there is fine. We have the right to observe. That right comes to us from the Constitution. Our right to free assembly, our right to free speech. We're allowed to be on a public sidewalk unless there's a specific reason that the police have for closing that sidewalk.
You gotta go to jail here in 1 minute.
So if you're standing there watching the police and there's members of the public walking by on the sidewalk, but the police officer looks at you and tells you that you have to leave, that's the time to assert your right to observe. And that is constitutionally protected activity.
I'm sorry?
It's all good, officer.
No, sir, it's not. If you can stand right behind that line as I've asked you. Yes. Thank you.
Over the years, police officers who initially were resistant to us, who initially had some suspicion or hostility towards us, now it's pretty much standard that when they see a cop watcher with a clipboard and a pen, they will offer their badge number to us because they have come to expect that that's what we're going to ask them for.
Would you like my name and business card?
Oh, if you'd like to give it to me, I'm just observing. It's my right.
My badge number is on my badge, 90.
129.
That's 28.
My name is Sergeant Randolph Files.
The officers aren't going to lie about their names.
I'm John Doe.
You're actually a police officer. Whether you're a victim of police misconduct or you simply witness it, officers are required to be identified by either a nameplate or a badge number. Remember, these are not secret police. These are public servants.
Here in Denver, there's a departmental regulation that requires police officers to give you a business card that has their name and badge number on it.
If you forget everything you've heard in this week or last week, all you need to know, get the badge number, stay calm, don't escalate the situation, and just record whatever you see.
But that's a black. You can't even see that. Back up.
Roll seats, keep your hands up.
Get the badge number!
Somebody get the badge number!
Go get that, go get that. 826.
If you ever see a cop that you're thinking is acting out of procedure, out of line, or something like that, get their badge number.
What is your badge number so I
Here, when you guys grab my bike, keep it.
My man's number will be on his arrest slip. What I'm asking you, what is it? You don't have enough. I don't care who you are.
All officers do have to wear their badges, and when asked, they should give you their badge number.
Officers, she's got a right to ask your badge number.
No matter what you see, you need to know who the officer was so that you can have a chance of seeing justice done.
Blocking the sidewalk!
Hey, we got a right to observe.
That's fine, but you're blocking the sidewalk and I'm telling you to move.
What's your badge number?
Badge 677, back off!
Right here, go right here, man!
Right there. Yeah, it's called loitering in the park.
We got a right to observe. Hey, don't worry.
It's important to know your rights, and it's important to assert them.
Hey, Val! Keep that camera, boy.
I got it.
On the one hand, having a camera is a great thing, and it can teach others, but the other aspect of cop watching is that we have to directly deal with the fact that our rights are being taken away. And we're either going to let that happen quietly, or we're going to put up some resistance.
Sir, you need to go back over here now. Go. All the way over there. Thank you.
Get your hand off me.
When an officer stops an individual, his or her mindset is pretty fixed. What they're trying to do is to find some kind of justification for initiating a stop, period. They need to find the reasonable suspicion, the articulable fact that links you to some sort of crime that has or is about to occur.
You made a legal turn when you were going down southbound. You were in the number 2 lane and you crossed all the way over and made a U-turn. Over to here.
I didn't know that.
Okay, I'm telling you. Okay. Is that thing on right now? Because I'm not giving you permission to film me.
From there, officers want to progress towards gathering evidence, which could lead ultimately to the individual's arrest. And the best advice that we have to offer people is to assert your rights as much as possible and say as little as possible.
Certainly everything you've done so far is the highest level we would ever ask for.
Thank you.
I mean, as far as making sure people are safe, and then that way too, if you're dealing with other officers, you know you're covered.
If we don't assert our rights, we're going to lose them completely. If the public has no expectation of our rights, then, anytime a cop says, "Hey, you, come here. What's in your backpack? Let me open it up. Why don't? Let me see. What do you got?" And maybe you don't feel like it.
When you're dealing with the police, there's several situations that you can classify them under. And the first one, and the one the police department likes the most, is the consensual situation. And that means you're agreeing to it.
Consensual means what it says. It means that the interaction between the person on the street and the police officer is entirely voluntary on the part of the person.
No, I don't consent to any conversation with an undercover cop. I don't want to talk to you.
You understand if you're getting close?
I don't consent to you talking.
Okay, well, if you're getting
Carry
close,
on.
In a consensual stop, a police officer walks up to you and says, "Hey, how you doing? How's it going? So, do you live around here?"
A lot of times they'll ask innocuous questions and then get down to what they really want to ask.
Did you know that this is kind of a drug area? Did you know that people actually are dealing a lot of drugs around here that is known for that? Is that right? Interesting. Can I see your ID?
Okay, can I see your ID then?
You have some identification?
You got licenses?
What we want to be careful of in a consensual stop is that she could at any time say, "Am I free to go? Am I being detained?"
If they don't have a reason, if they say there's no reason for them to stop you, you're free to go. I advise you to go, because that's your right. And a lot of times the police use these consensual stops to try to trap you into some kind of admission of criminal behavior.
A police officer can ask to speak to anybody. I mean, that's within the law. They have a right to do it, but you don't have to respond.
Are you filming the drug dealers too?
I don't consent to this conversation, officer.
Police often will go to great lengths to hide the fact that they don't have a lawful basis for ordering you to stop.
Asserting your rights, it's almost like turning on a switch. You have to assert your rights. Your silence is basically consent. You've seen the bumper stickers, right? Silence is consent. Especially true when you're accosted by a police officer.
Because you got to understand, when a cop comes up to you and asks you questions, you're voluntarily participating in their investigation. You know, that's why there's no reason for you to answer those questions.
If you don't agree to the stop, you need to say something. If the cops don't let you go at that point, you're being detained.
The officer has to have a reasonable suspicion to believe that a crime has been or is about to occur and that there is something linking you to that.
Can't be just, well, we heard some guy like you was walking around here doing stuff that was suspicious. It's got to be substantive. So you should ask the police officer, why am I being detained?
There's no loitering at liquor stores.
Well, what? Well, I ain't got no traffic violation. Man, don't hurt my arm.
Say, officer, what penal code section has been violated? You know, what? You know, like, free mom. And then go like this. Well, let's go get them together.
If you're being detained by a police officer, you don't have to answer the questions of the police officer. The officer asks for your ID. You should give them ID if you have it, but you don't have to answer any more questions.
Where are you staying here?
That's not important. I'm staying with friends.
Okay. Hang on just a second for me, all right?
Do you guys want this filmed?
Yeah.
All right.
Step back. Step back.
Never consent to a search, you know, never consent to any search at all. You know, and understand what consenting to a search may mean. For instance,
in a detention, there's going to be a pat search for officer safety reasons. What that means is that if an officer has to spend time discussing with you and investigating you, that the court and law feels that it's okay for them to do a search of the exterior of your clothing.
But that's supposed to be an outside the clothes general search that's supposed to allow the officer to know that you're not carrying a weapon. He's not supposed to put his hands in your pockets. He's not supposed to put his hands in your backpack. If that happens, don't resist physically, but repeat again that you're not agreeing to this search. Now, they can handcuff you and hold you for a period of time during a detention, because that's supposed to give the officers an opportunity to do a mini investigation to see if they can substantiate the reasonable suspicion. It's not supposed to be an opportunity for them to search you or harass you or find out who all your relatives are and where they live. If they try that, the best thing to do is to stop talking.
A lot of times an officer will stop an individual, and what's important for us all to know is that we don't have to give our consent to a search.
I don't got any weapons. I don't know you.
The officer's job is to try to gather as much evidence as he or she possibly can to use against you.
I'm not giving you permission to be doing this to me, you understand?
Excuse me, could you tell me why you're searching this?
Please, thank you.
Thank you.
Oftentimes, their best source of evidence is us. And if we just learn to remain silent and just only give officers the information that they have to have, I think we'll all fare better.
Sir. Hello.
You have a right not to answer their questions. You have the right to remain silent.
You may not be moved from the general area where you are as part of a detention. If you're placed in a police car and driven to a police station, you're in custody. You are not being detained. That has become an arrest.
And if you are unfortunate enough to be arrested, never speak to the police after you've been arrested. There's only one thing you need to say in an arrest situation, and that's, I have the right to remain silent, and I'd like to speak to an attorney as soon as possible. Don't give any other information away with the police. You're not going to be able to talk yourself out of arrest. You might have been able to do it during the detention, which is questionable in my opinion, but once you're arrested, your best bet is to rely on your constitutional protections.
You know, they go on what we call fishing expeditions. You know, that's what this whole racial profiling thing is about. Is about trying to stop people and go, oh, you know, like those pullovers, right? They will approach from behind, and they, you know, and they want to see your hands on the steering wheel, hands visible. May I see your ID, registration, and proof of insurance? Meanwhile, another officer might very well be somewhere else in the car. Anything that's visible in the car, any prohibited substances, open containers, something that looks like you know, a roach or some kind of marijuana paraphernalia, all of that can become pretext to thoroughly search the car, the accessible areas of the car, and to, you know, if they find stuff, ultimately to take possession of the car and to take you to jail. All right, what are you doing?
Oh, we're the Copwatchers. We're just
Okay, I need you to back up.
Oh.
I need you out of here. Back.
We're just observing. We're not here. We need you guys to observe.
Okay, this guy, he's got his privacy.
Yeah,
this guy is having a hard time, and he doesn't need you people poking your nose into it, okay? Let me see you. Back up.
If you're arrested by a cop and you haven't done anything, you're likely to be really angry, and rightly so.
Help me! Come on, help me! Stay down! Stay down!
If you physically resist a police officer who's arresting you, you may be subject to additional charges.
Get it on video! Get it on video!
And as important is that you risk the officer responding with excessive force.
If you're a victim of police misconduct, there's a few things you should do right away. As soon as possible, write down a very detailed account of what happened with as much description as you can recall. Try to get the badge numbers, the names, and the actual physical descriptions of the officers involved. If you're physically injured by a police officer, it's really important that you get yourself to a doctor and document your injuries.
You know, if you're observing the police, there's some information you need to get so that the evidence you give is credible.
Always get the police car number. See if you can get the badge number.
You want to get the exact time that the incident happened, the exact location. You want to get the names and numbers of any witnesses to the incident.
And see if you can communicate without, you know, being accused of any kind of disruption. And then also, if that person needs a witness as to what occurred, they've got one, they've got you.
Again, this information may seem unimportant initially, but it can be very important in upcoming action. A lot of times, your mere presence at a scene can really go a long ways towards making the police feel like they are now being held accountable for the way that they're interacting with an individual. An officer understands that when Copwatch leaves the scene, they're going to bring that information back to the people, and that ultimately the voice of the people will be heard.
Guy's got a camera in my face?
Hypothetically, what could you do if you're driving through your neighborhood and you see what appears to be some police drama going on? They got somebody lined up against the wall or something like that. Well, first thing you could do is just pull over. Now, who got the camera? If you got the camera, well, hey, that's a great tool for police accountability, to just start filming what is going on. More important, if you don't have a camera, no problem. Simply by observing the police, this can play a very restraining function on how the police deal with so-called perpetrators or suspects.
I'm out here
risking my life every day, and the last thing I need to do is worry about more people that might attack me. I don't know you.
We're not here to attack you.
I don't know that.
We've built a reputation with Copwatch. Non-violent.
Non-violent.
Yep.
That's why you're burdening my safety situation.
Yeah, okay.
It's important to realize that the cops are very paranoid. They abuse people every day.
I thought you had a gun.
So it's really incumbent upon you to very carefully and slowly approach the scene, keeping your hands where people can see them.
When we walk up to a police officer, you don't want to come up from behind. Our goal is to document what's happening. It is not to interfere with a police officer. It's not to escalate tensions. In fact, we try to de-escalate tensions.
The partner, don't interfere with the investigation. I've explained that you need to stay out of the safety zone, which I'm trying to make right now. I have no problem with the videotaping. Relax, man. I'm explaining to you. I'm a Quaker. Young man, Relax. I'm explaining to you what I'm telling you to do. Relax. What I'm ordering you to do. Relax, man. It's okay.
We are telling you when to relax, not you us, okay?
If you see a situation occurring and there's some distance between you and the situation before you can get up in it, you know, try to assess it as best as you can so that you can determine what's the best way to go about it, because each situation is going to be a little bit different.
Man, keep that camera on. Please keep that camera on, because I ain't doing shit.
Right.
I just came from the mall. They got guns on my son.
How you approach that situation, your composure really matters. Use your head.
Stand on the sidewalk. Stand on the sidewalk. Stand on the sidewalk. Back up.
Hey,
back
man.
up. You back up.
Back up now.
Hey, you back up.
Back up.
You know, you have to treat these cops, you know, a lot like a farm animal. You don't want to startle them. You don't want to scare them. You know, understanding that they're feeling tense and scared. And so through keeping our voice calm, through using body language that is non-threatening, we attempt to communicate to the person and to the officer that we're not there to create conflict.
Excuse me, you're in the middle of a police investigation. Go stand on the sidewalk. Go stand on the sidewalk.
Are you a citizen?
Yeah, I'm a citizen. Stay over here with everybody else.
It is true, however, that we will advocate for people's rights, and we will assert our understanding of the law and of our civil liberties.
Excuse me, officer. Okay, just want to check. Thank you.
In a situation where we perceive that the police officer is violating that person's rights.
Now, very often, you find yourself in a situation where you see an incident unfolding, and you walk over to observe, and the police tell you,
Can you scoot back?
Very calmly say, "Officer, I have a right to observe. I am not in any way trying to hamper what you're doing." And take a step back and see if that calms them down a bit.
It's okay.
Okay, we'll take a step back.
Thank you. That's all I'm asking. You can take all the pictures and all the video you want. I don't care. Just stay back.
What's up? I'm on Copwatch, not with the police.
Yeah, make sure you film all of this. Straight harassment.
Now, you know, sometimes when you show your determination to observe, well, they'll call for backup.
Back it up. Too close. You are too close. Back up.
You have to be conscious of the fact that these people, they know nothing of what's actually going on or what may have happened. And they're trained to pretty much just respond in a defensive manner and place themselves between you and the officer. What's really important here is that you don't get excited and give them a reason to believe that you've been a problem.
Stay on the sidewalk. Stay on the sidewalk. If you come closer, you're going to jail, okay? Stay there. Be very careful with what you do.
And inform those officers that you are only observing. that you have a right to observe.
You're gonna go to jail here in 1 minute.
Okay, I'm crossing the street.
Cross the street.
Okay, I don't want to disturb you guys. I'm just here to observe.
It's really important not to avert your eyes as if you were didn't want to look at something shameful. It's really important to fix your gaze on what is happening, to remember, to see and to be seen by the person who, if you are not there, is alone, very often surrounded by hostile police.
You got me?
I got it.
You got me?
Yep.
You got me?
I got it.
Just pay attention to everything, how it goes down. Just keep a mental record of everything that's going down. So if you see violations occur, go ahead and take it through the process as far as filing complaints and things like that, regardless if the person asked you to or not. If the person is arrested, then it's going to be a matter of public record, and you can get their name that way.
They arrested my man for nothing, you hear me? Nothing at all.
If they're not going to be arrested and let go, you can get their name afterwards, you know, and then hook them up on what their rights are if they don't know and what the process is, and help them through that if they want to go through that.
When we cop watch, we like to go out with a partner. We need somebody to witness our witnessing of the police.
Time to go home, sir. I think they need to have time to go home. Sir, time to go home.
One of you can spend your time actually watching the police interaction, and then the other person can go around and talk to witnesses, talk to people who are on the scene, and really get a good grasp of what happened right before you arrived and what the context is. And then you can get together and put all your information together and really understand what happened and what the best thing is to do next.
It is highly likely that police will seek to violate your rights when you're trying to cop watch.
Don't worry.
Just stay back from where we're working.
You're fine.
Step back from where we're working, okay?
Okay, do whatever you please. Okay.
Don't interfere with the investigation.
What I'm telling you now for your tape, for your recording, is you're this close to interfering.
And here is where the question of organization comes in. Because the next time, if you show up with 3 people, it puts the whole matter on a different level. Sometimes when it's just your word against the cops, you're at a bit of a disadvantage. So it always helps, when possible, that you have at least one partner working with you. Because the more people involved, the weaker the police are. It's harder for them to then say that 3 people were obstructing justice.
Where the sergeant at? Where the sergeant at? Where the street sergeant at? Where the street sergeant at? Where the street sergeant at?
Fucking not here in front of a fucking police car. Bullshit, you're not sorry.
What happened?
You stood in the middle of our fucking assistance run. Do you understand that we had cops who need help down here? And you stand in the middle of our fucking way. I don't think you realize what you just did.
So after you've had an encounter with a police officer or police officers, and you've been abused, either physically or emotionally, your rights have been violated, you want to do something. And as a lawyer, very often people come to me and they ask me, do I have a case? If in fact a police officer acts unlawfully and violates your rights and you're injured, you have a case. Police misconduct is against the law, and it may very well be a constitutional violation. Unfortunately, there's a whole lot more, many more victims of police misconduct than there are lawyers available to take those cases. That's just a hard fact of reality. That doesn't mean that you're without recourse.
You may want to take your complaint to a civilian review board if there's one in your city.
Some of them are more independent than others. Some of them have more powers than others. Those review boards can't compensate you monetarily. The only way you're going to get that is through a lawsuit. But they can adjudicate your case in an administrative hearing, and they can make findings that in some cases are merely advisory and never go anywhere. In other cases may result in discipline. You can always file a complaint with the Internal Affairs Bureau of Police. You should have no illusions about these. Going to Internal Affairs is a lot like asking the fox to watch out for the chickens in the chicken coop. But that doesn't mean it isn't worth doing, because if you file a complaint, even if it's not sustained, that complaint goes into the personnel file of the police officer.
These can all bring some pressure to bear on local authorities, and they can help to educate the community. But we're not relying on those approaches to stop misconduct. We can't wait for justice to simply appear. Justice is something that we can make in our own communities, and the first step is for people to get into the street and to see firsthand what's actually happening in their communities.
What we're really working to do, though, is to build empowerment in the community, and so what that means is community organizing. Community organizing is a really important part of what we're doing, is just literally getting on the streets. We're taking a direct, active role in the community and making sure that people know us and know what we're doing, and we're getting literature out and we're talking to people about how they can get involved. And by doing that grassroots effort, we really are building community and building our organization around the community that we work in.
There is a consequence for the police just messing with cop watchers.
You see this? The streets is watching, motherfucker, and we seen everything, goddammit.
We have a reputation that we built up over years, that we are simply observing, that we have a right to observe. And that is accepted by our community. People understand what we're about, and the cops know they're not going to get very far lying about what we do. And that puts us in a very powerful position, at least in a position to gather the information that we seek.
Copwatching itself is not a solution to the problem of police brutality, but it is a tremendous advance in the struggle when we stand together in the streets, in our own neighborhoods, to defend each other against police misconduct.
We are going to stand up, and we're going to show these babies and these children that we are out here, and you can overcome the situation if you just stay together, you know what I mean?
Copwatching isn't just a hobby or something you do. Copwatching is a way of life. It's the balance to having cops. You have cops here and you have Copwatch here.
And our daily assertion of our rights makes it that much easier for the next person. And ultimately, if we were all asserting our rights, it means that we all could live with a greater degree of security and peacefulness.
I'm going to take my community back. This is my home. You're not going to let nobody come in your house and dictate the rules of your house, because it's your house. So stand up, man. That's why I tell you, community, stand up. Because if we don't stand up, who will?
That cop right there put that woman in handcuffs because she asked for his ID earlier.
I know.
Yeah. It's illegal. It's ridiculous.
Totally keep my ass.
Are you allowed to comment on the pending low-power FM legislation in Congress?
I'd love to. What are you listening to now on your earphone? What? I can't hear you. I'm listening on my earphones. Yeah.
People sometimes don't want to see what goes on behind closed doors or at night when, you know, it's not in the public eye. Copwatch makes people see the truth about police misconduct.
Don't get in his way. Jesus. Pump it up, yeah. Take some deep breaths, relax, take some deep breaths and relax.
Sweeper approaching. Caution. Sweeper approaching. Caution. Sweeper approaching.
You need to tell Public Works to come at another time.
Okay, I understand that, but they're still here now, and they're still going to do their job.
They need to come at another time.
I understand that, but they're here now, and they're still going to need to do their job. How can I work with you in order to get that done? Give me a solution.
What is their job?
Clean the sidewalk.
Why?
Because they're public works.
Right.
Who else?
Public Works, and they're working for the public.
Right.
And here you have the public, and they don't want it.
You're missing the point.
I think you're missing the point.
Okay.
Sergeant Reddick.
Call me Rat.
You know what? We can have this bullshit rhetoric conversation, or we can really talk about what's really happening.
I don't want to talk what's really happening. I want to give you.
I want to talk about what's really happening.
Is this for your entertainment?
No, we're here with Copwatch. Here with Copwatch. Just here to observe.
So, why are you treating me like this?
What?
Why do you treat me like this?
Treat you like how?
Like this.
Yeah, all right. I'm pretty close to just like you. Pretty close.
Yeah.